media's role is critical to democratic elections, like I've said, especially in safeguarding transparency of the process. And elections with no media freedom or stifled media freedom would be a contradiction to that. We have lots of problems, we have a lot of challenges. So I would be proposing three things here. If we can fix these three things, a lot of the issues would be resolved. Or we could prevent a lot of unwanted things coming up in the elections. First and foremost on my list is, how do we fight fake news? It concerns politicians, aspiring candidates. It concerns the Election Commission of Bhutan, and it deeply concerns the media fraternity. And we are also now beginning to see what has happened, beginning to see a lot of anonymous accounts. By rule, we are not supposed to declare any candidates or make any announcements. But there are social media anonymous accounts going public, of course, with the photographs and details of aspiring national council candidates. It's beginning now. It's nothing defamatory or derogatory at the moment, but we will see a lot of those in the coming days now. So this makes on top of my list because it has huge impact on the harmony of the society. I think supporters or members of politician parties could be responsible. There could be vested interest groups who are doing this deliberately. But my point here is, if we come together, if we strategize our mitigating efforts, then we can confront or we can fight it out on social media swiftly. That's what it requires. And on the ground, this problem for media covering elections is especially dealing with officials on election duty. Not so much with election officials in ECB headquarters per se, but those deputed on ground overseeing the conduct of elections. When we are reporters and journalists or cameramen who go to polling booths, the counting centers, or are seeking information, some are willing to give out information readily. Others are not so aware of the situation or the rules and regulations, and I think they are not really bad people, but they do not know how to deal with media. That has been a very big challenge for us over the years. Now, what I would propose for that is before every election, ECB conducts a training or familiarization workshop, seminar kind of thing for aspiring candidates, politicians, and the officials who are deployed for election duty. The fact is that they do not understand why media is important in such an election during the election setup period. So if we could communicate or convey that through to the elections officials on duty, I think what we can come up with would be quite meaningful. The final thing would be for political parties and ECB and other stakeholders, we need proper communication channels. We had a political party with one guy as the spokesperson, and we couldn't get interviews or quotes from any other person in that party. So what happened was, stories went out or were published or printed without the quote from that particular party. So then it doesn't look good on the part of the media to publish stories that are not really whole in the sense that some parties' representatives have given out their comments, views on some issues, and there's no mention of the other party. At the best, if possible, we would always better to have at least two spokespersons, lah. Because we know ECV commissioners or party leaders will be attending a marathon of meetings, lah. And waiting for them or their quotes would be difficult for us, because in 2008 or 18 we could wait, lah. Today, what is breaking news in the morning is no more news in the afternoon. So you would also have to see from the media's point of view that waiting is just killing the credibility or killing the value of that news. So if we have that channel flowing, and if we can facilitate, the parties or the ECB could facilitate that flow of keep that channel of information open, I think we would have definitely a better election situation. Thank you.
One of the key things that we see also, as I've been watching elections in Bhutan, the last two, I would say, what is going to be important to look out to is the role of social media, and the challenges in disinformation, misinformation, and other campaigns that takes place in social media. We have also moved on from speech, texts and messages on, say, Facebook or some other platforms a couple of years ago. In the last elections, this time we see broadcasts on WhatsApp. We see messages floating around on TikTok videos. So the platforms have changed. And having looked at some of these developments, especially close back home in Nepal, we have also seen that tech platforms have been taking more proactive action. For instance, we had worked with Meta, the owner of Facebook, to organize election integrity summits, where we had sessions for political parties. We had sessions for government, election commission, and other officials, where we discussed what are the community standards, what can be posted on, say, for instance, Facebook, what cannot be posted, what can be taken down, or how can you engage in paid advertisements in over Facebook, how can you get into paid advertisements on other platforms. So these are also, as Bhutan looks into election 2023, it would be important to see how you also collaborate, and this could be the election commission or CSOs collaborating with tech giants to ensure that the community standards are followed. The elections are now fought not through speeches and door-to-day campaigns only, but you have a huge role of social media. So that would be something that would be very important to look at. Also, when we look at the results of the elections, and especially in Nepal, where we have independent parties, young parliamentarians, aspiring parliamentarians, so as to say, who won elections, spending very little money. So there is a party called the Rashtriya Swatantra Party, or the Nepal Independent Party, started by a TV anchor commentator in July of this year. So in 5 months, June, so in 5 months, they not only contested the elections, but won a significant 20 seats, nearly about 8% of parliamentarian seats they won. And some of the independent candidates we saw, and when we were talking to them, spent lower than, say, 120, 130,000, Indian rupees, equivalent to Bhutanese currency, in the elections. So elections have changed. Also, we have seen where it is not about being affiliated to large parties, especially that's been the Nepal experience, and independents have made a pretty big inroad by contesting on challenging existing status quo thinking processes, talking about job creation, talking about economic growth and development. So those are some of the interesting observations we had in Nepal, and we see that across the world as social media gets independent and undivided individual attention, be it reels or be it TikTok videos or different YouTube short videos. So and messaging that comes over different platforms, that has changed in the way in which elections are contested, elections are won. One big challenge we see, I think, globally is that, which I don't think that is an issue in Bhutan, where political parties have their own media outlets. So then it also means that to keep your media platform afloat, you need money to hire more journalists, more stringers, more correspondents. And so you rely on businesses for advertisement or investments to keep your platform going, and which uh, pushes in the media platforms and political parties and businesses to develop a very deep nexus. And that becomes a big challenge we see. But I don't see that, sort of with my knowledge of Bhutan, the work we do, I don't think that would be a major issue because you don't have politically party affiliated media houses as far as I can gather. And in a country like Bhutan, where you have a very good system of only of two parties going in for the final elections, and the way people would think of voting in the primaries and in the final election, I think that way we would see that in Bhutan, the challenges that are elsewhere in the world may not be so much applicable, but then it would be important to see how fact checking and ensuring fake news and misinformation, disinformation campaigns are managed well.
I was watching the coverage on the election, in the general election, the last general election, which was almost 5 years ago. Diga ngachi gotsup de dap shekdalu ngachi tumla ji maro ji beje. Kajim so chinani achi zakto di 2008 lo di ngachi karat ani jawang be ga imba. I think the first parliamentarians and the first election was some kind of experiencing. So democracy in Bhutan has been an experiential learning for everybody. BBS used to call us on the phone. Anyway, anytime, sometime in the logical line, damas, the daju salu heptalu, the poto chikozi, do chikozi, the BBS, the chigalo, chiki kadebe chodose, chiki nosa kadebe dandose. Anyway, the any chichulu pinin kanemi, and don't have the part enemy. So the garani oral be, verbal bejo. BBS setting ani me mana ani mindigit la khaduba. The tuche mana. The tachibe miji pason. Bebe. The ngachi ni public law ngachiri loju the democracy ki kole nusukara jurche ki kole loju labda lu de koki coverage bebe. The news na lu de corona Palestine news na ke bebe na le nimbome. So anibodolo numlachi coverage was minimum, but we didn't expect much more than that. With the educated voters, I think some people used the internet to ask for communicate with them. Then we were not very good at social media. He used Nehema and Benimi. The only time we met was during our meeting in the village Nalapa. So then we met with every village and every village. Then there was hardly any communication with the people who were absent from in the villages. After the election, I was in a group, swimming pool, a young group. There was a student. I think ex-student member. I hate politicians. Democracy now, democracy has come. Then politicians to say na them I hate politicians. And then somehow she also presumed that the Buddhist politicians would be no different. As we go on, that is the third 3 elections ki couple that everybody has through experiences. I think we have learned a lot.